Welcome. I'm Catherine Magana here with Steve Wolf, Rachel Ivanovich, and Greg Carroll. And we're going to continue the conversation on retirement planning mistakes and things that we've seen from our clients and being in the industry. And one of the things that comes up fairly often is taking care or caregiving of older parents or children or having an illness in the family. And so what we find is if you're working already, you're in career, sometimes you have to take a break, or maybe you cut your hours a little bit to help cover. Or if you're in retirement, are you caregiving for family members? And it can be expensive. I mean, the cost of caregiving is very expensive, and sometimes what we find is a lot of family members, they don't want to go to a facility. They want to live at home and they want to be with family. So it's a very private matter. But I think, as we go through this with our clients, the other thing to look at is, what are you doing for yourself too? What are you doing to plan for your future? Are you going to be an impact on your kids, or are you going to have assets or enough to self-insure, or do you have insurance to cover?
To put some of this into real dollars, I was just doing a little research. On average, now it could be, this is a national average, so it's going to be different depending on where you live. But a private room in nursing home care, the average cost is $8,821 a month, or $105,852 a year. Probably around where we live in the San Diego area is probably more than that. A semi-private room is $7,756 a month, so you're not really saving that much, maybe about $12,000 for the year. Assisted living. The monthly cost national average, $4,300 a month, or $51,600 a year. Now, again, this will vary depending on where you live. At-home care, which is another thing that a lot of people are talking about. Mm-hmm. The national average cost for a home health aide is about $24 an hour. And again, that's probably more now, considering that, at least in California, the minimum wage has gone way up. If a home health aide is needed for 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, the monthly cost would be about $3,840 or $46,000 a year. There's homemaker services, which is per hour. How about adult daycare, which is something else people are doing? That's about $74 a day. So the actual dollars are high, and this can definitely derail your financial plan.
Well, it's not just your mom and dad. It could also be aunts and uncles or other family members that don't have any adult children that can help care for them. Case in point, my mom and I, we ended up bringing in her brother, and he lived with us for 8 months. And so she wasn't able to work during that time, and it significantly drained. Emotionally, it's hard to take care of an elderly person. And it's definitely what he wanted. It was really good for him to be with family, but it can really derail your financial plan. And once he did go into a facility, like you said, Steve, it was $11,000 a month.
Yeah, it's expensive. I mean, there are things that, we have in place that can help. There's Medicare, there's Medicaid, long-term care insurance. We've talked about that, veterans benefits, personal savings and investments, reverse mortgages. I mean, there are things that you can do, but to me, especially when you're taking money out of your own savings account, none of that is really great for you.
So I think it's a labor of love. I mean, obviously you want to be there for your family and you want to step up. And even for myself, I had a family member, a sister that had a terminal illness, and we all of us came together as a family and helped as much as we could. It wasn't just one person, but there are times where we have clients and it's just them, being the caregiver. For example, we have one of our clients, she was working full time. She actually had to take a step back to work part time to help care for her mom. And she knows financially it's not the best thing for her, but once again, what are you going to do if you have a family member that you love and you need to take care of them?
And it's a big, like you say, emotional toll too on the caregiver, especially, I've had several clients, and actually my mother had cognitive decline, and her husband, wasn't physically, he was not able to care for her the way she needed, especially when a loved one doesn't know what they're doing and they walk out a door and they disappear. But if you are that caregiver and you're on call 24/7, it's taxing on those individuals. I mean, they need help to deal with what they're going through, just supporting their spouse or another loved one. But
I think it's always harder on the caregiver than the other person. It always is. I was just talking to someone this morning, as a matter of fact, who was talking about her mom, who is now in assisted living, but she needs help. And she was just talking about it. She said, I just can't believe how much I have to do to help. So it certainly could. Fortunately for her, that she has the money in which to help out, but it takes a emotional toll on anyone. And if you don't think that's stressful, it is. Mm-hmm. It's really stressful. I remember it's just with my own wife. I mean, she had, I don't know, hip surgeries. She's had shoulder surgeries, and I'm trying to take care of her. And she's kind of getting angry with me, mm-hmm. and I'm saying, hey, I'm doing the best I can.
I'm just trying to help you.
Exactly, yeah. But it creates a lot of stress.
It does. And I think I was reading an article about this very topic, about the cost of taking care of an elderly loved one. And one of the things that it was mentioned there was oftentimes that loved one might not even live in your same community. And so you need to plan ahead for that money to actually fly to see them, to take care of them. I have a client and a friend whose mom was in her 90s, and she has several siblings, but they alternated like you said your family did. But she would fly up to Sacramento, once a month to take shifts because the other brothers and sisters were tired and emotionally drained. And so I think that's something to factor in.
Well, just so I want to go back a little bit here, circle back, as someone once said to my wife, I love her, and I don't want to get a divorce. Yeah. So I'm just going to tell you that she was terrific throughout most of the time that we had there. So, babe, I love you.
Yeah, a couple of things, I guess. That these are becoming more and more common, where you have these illnesses, and a couple of things you can do to protect your finances is. Yes. Health savings accounts. If you have a high deductible insurance plan through work, you can put money in tax deferred. It grows tax free. It can be invested in at certain amounts. It's
triple tax advantaged.
Triple tax advantaged, and long term care is another thing, because if you end up, like you said, $11,000 a month, or
that's
whether
steep.
It's a little less than $8,000 a month, that's a lot of money every year. So if you don't have some sort of long term care. There was a statistic I saw one time that they equated the odds of having one of the spouses being in a long-term care situation was much greater than being in a car accident or your house burning down or something like that. So it is something that happens. It's not, long-term care is what they consider like 90 days, and they can last up to 3, 4, 5 years depending, if it's dementia or not. So you definitely want to have a plan for that.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways to mitigate it? Obviously, one is to have an emergency fund. Now, you can't have an emergency fund for every contingency that's going to happen. Okay. But if you think that you might have to take care of someone, if it's something that's somewhat predictable and you're going to be the one that has to pay for it, you should probably have some sort of emergency plan. How about insurance coverage? This is for the people who might get sick. Ensure you have comprehensive health, long-term care, disability insurance. Disability is another one we don't even think about. And that really is harder because usually that disability is happening during your working years.
When you're invincible.
Yeah, exactly. Especially when you're 21 starting out. Well, that's never going to happen to me.
Right.
But it does.
And that's probably one of the more affordable forms of insurance too.
It absolutely is. If you can get flexible work arrangements, that's something that possibly could mitigate some of the issues. More and more employers are allowing people to work from home or a little bit more flexibly, which is something that could help.
So it's interesting as we're talking about health savings accounts and putting money aside. And one of the things that comes up that I see or hear often is the dental care and the expenses of that. So that's something I think as you get older, you don't realize, well, wait a minute.
It's expensive.
It's really expensive. And so, and that's usually not covered by dental insurance, most of it. So having those health savings accounts or having some money set aside, but those are things, you don't think about now.
Well, the brilliant thing about HSAs or health savings account is, like you said, the money goes in and then it grows tax deferred, comes out tax free if you use it for medical, but you don't lose it at the end of the year like some of these flexible spending accounts that are out there that are employer plans. So money actually does roll over year to year and can grow. So it's really a really great way. It's a tax efficient way to save.
Well, again, going back to some ways to mitigate the impact. Now, a lot of this is for the person who might need the care, because they will have the money. But there's government and community resources that you might hook up onto. Retirement plan adjustments. That's another thing that you might look at. Regularly review and adjust your retirement account. I mean, if you are, and perhaps you have Parkinson's disease, and you know that sooner or later you're going to need some care, or you have dementia and you know the early signs of it, perhaps you can make a few differences. You don't want to necessarily be in a growth stock as much as maybe some income oriented. Again, it all depends on your individual situation, but those are things you should do. Certainly seek out professional advice, financial planners or advisors. Hopefully we can help to navigate through this. And then there's family support. Maybe you're one who has to take care, but maybe you've got sisters, brothers, whoever, who might also share in that. So we think that obviously you don't know exactly what's going to happen in the future. You can't have a plan for every contingency that might happen, but certainly you can plan a little bit. Make sure you have that emergency fund. Talk to if you know that it's coming, talk to the person who you're going to have to care for, and see if maybe they can make some arrangements.
Well, I think, one of the, we talked a little bit about medical issues and maybe taking care of parents or other adult siblings and such, but the younger generation is really starting to cost a lot of money to their parents.
Starting.
Apparently, there was a study done recently where the millennial and Gen X adult children were on average given between $900 and $1,000 each month by their parents. Gen Z, and I don't, the millennials, the X's, the Z's, the ABCs, there's so many generations now, but Gen Z, they're age 18 to 27 at this point, were getting more help from their mothers and fathers, averaging $1,500 a month. And nearly 50% of all U.S. parents financially support their children.
50?
50. So
it's like we have some work ahead of us.
Well, so you got to think about, why are we supporting them so much? And if we are, we've got to have a plan to wean them off of that financial support. Maybe, hey, we're going to not pay this bill for you this month. And in 6 months, you got to start paying that one. And, 12 months from now, you need to be standing on your own 2 feet. But we need to, I don't know if our generation is doing as good a job with our kids on financial planning as we were taught. And, it is becoming a problem out there.
Yeah, I find it amazing how many parents will put themselves in hock to help their children. Mm-hmm. They're adults and assuming that they're capable. You've got to start asking yourself, why am I doing this? And are you really helping that person? Are you helping them by giving, or do you help them maybe by teaching? My personal philosophy is I would rather teach, and so they can help themselves.
Teach them to fish.
Mm-hmm.
Exactly. What's that? Something about fish. What is that?
I don't know, but I would rather teach my kids how to budget and plan and work and save than give them the money.
Well, I think I remember what it was. You can give them a fish and they won't go hungry for the night, or you can teach them how to fish and they won't go hungry for the rest of their life.
Yes.
So I think that's probably what needs to be done. But that's a little off the topic of what we're talking about right now. So hopefully we've helped a little bit as far as mitigating this particular problem.
Please stay tuned for important regulatory disclosures. The opinions expressed in this program are for general informational purposes only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual or on any specific security. It is only intended to provide education about the financial industry. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult your financial advisor prior to investing. Any past performance discussed during this program is no guarantee of future results. Any indices referenced for comparison are unmanaged and cannot be invested into directly. As always, please remember investing involves risk and possible loss of principal capital. Please seek advice from a licensed professional. Wolf Weezy Magana, LLC, doing business as WWM Financial, Savvy Doc Financial Planners, and Savvy Woman Wealth Management, is a registered investment advisor with the SEC.